Starts go. Here we go. Okay, so my name is Robbie Roberts, and I'm going to keep my camera off for most of this meeting. However, I will turn it on right now, just so you know that I am here. And I'm currently in my basement in my impromptu classroom. This is my little spot that I've carved out for myself, as we are 100% virtual in Franklin County. Now, as we get going, the first couple slides, for introduction's sake, I've got some of my players here. Mahmood and Riddy are both 8th graders. And then I have Vidya, she is a 7th grader, and Malishwar is a 6th grader. So they're gonna help out with different aspects of the presentation throughout the evening, but they are some of my trusty helpers, and I appreciate them being here. All right, so let me get to I'll go ahead and turn my camera off now. So the name of this presentation is Becoming a QuizBowl Pro, and it's using QuizBowl Pro for online Governor's Cup Quick Recall. If you could type in the chat, first of all, your name, what team you coach or what level, and then what is your current experience with QuizBowl Pro, the online platform we're going to use for Governor's Cup. While I'm getting started here, if you don't mind to type that in the chat, it'll help give me a little bit of an idea of maybe some things to highlight versus some things that I can go over a little quicker. As you're doing that, here's a little bit about me. My name is Robbie Roberts. I'm a math teacher at Western Hills High School in Frankfort, Kentucky. And I coach the Governor's Cup and Math Counts teams for Bondrett Middle School, which is in Frankfort, Kentucky. And it's the feeder middle school for Western Hills High School. I am also in my first year as a KAAC Board of Director board member. And there is my email address, which I put in the chat earlier, robbie.roberts@franklin.kyschools.us. I see Janet is at Lexington Christian Academy. Okay, so you've been using the system for high schoolers already. You've been doing some scrimmages. Good. So this is not going to be brand new to you. Excellent. Well, as some other people type in the chat, I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to tell you that I want to get to live demonstration of this as quickly as possible. So I'm going to zoom through some of the very beginning stuff just so I can get to actually showing some live demonstrations. And maybe if some of you would like, you could also maybe play along with this. All right, Markayla, I hope I'm saying that correct. Teaches 2nd grade in Pikeville. And first time using it, but you've been a coach for 4 years. Excellent, great. I hope there's some good stuff that you can pick up tonight in our presentation. By the way, that's part of my team from last year at regionals, which was the last time we all got to see each other. I haven't seen the kids since then, at least not in real life, through a webcam. All right, so the purpose of this training for tonight is this. This is what the training is for. Familiarizing yourself with the features of QuizBowl Pro, seeing the QuizBowl Pro system from both the coaches and the players' perspective. I want you to see some of the rules changes that are affected because of our virtual quick recall for this year. And I want to do that in a live setting. And then maybe most importantly, I want everyone to gain some confidence to give the kids on your team a great quick recall experience for Governor's Cup this year. Here's what the training is not for. It is not a tutorial on Google Meets, on Zoom, or any other video conferencing platforms. If you're like me, you've probably had enough of those to last you multiple lifetimes. So we're not going to really focus on the features of any of those video conferencing platforms. They will come up. This is also not a training about hosting a Governor's Cup competition. We will see some ideas, some tips that will help you if you were lucky enough to be selected to host districts or regionals. However, if you're interested more in that, Donovan Kearns, and I'm going to type his name in the chat, because if you have any hosting issues, he's putting on some great training sessions through KAC as well. He's a fellow board member. He's in our region at Royal Spring Middle School, which is in Georgetown, Kentucky. And look for that name if you are hosting and you want to see a presentation more specifically about hosting. That is your, oh yeah. Yeah, so he is definitely 100% the person you want to talk to. I highly recommend going to his sessions. He hosted our 6th grade showcase. He also hosted our league that we have before Showcase. and he does an amazing job, and that's going to be a very, very important if you are hosting. Yeah, Donovan Kearns. All right. So here's an overview. We're going to do just a quick overview of the whole platform. We're going to look at it from the coach's perspective and the student perspective. And at that point, I'm going to turn it over to some of my kids and let them demonstrate some of the features of QuizBowl Pro. And we'll play a little quick recall. And if any of you want to jump in the match as well, we might do that. And then after we do a little live demo, we're going to look at rule changes and common issues. I moved the order of this around from my first presentation because I want to get to the actual demo stuff a lot earlier than I did the first time. So here's the system. If you have not seen it before, QuizBowl Pro, it's online quick recall platform. And this is developed and used nationwide, and it's customized for lots of different competition formats. So this is not specifically created for Governor's Cup. This is used by teams in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, all across the country, and it's set up for all different types. So it's set up for, it can be used in math counts. It can be used in 4-H Quiz Bowl. It can be used in NAQT. It's set up for a lot of different systems. So we'll see some features that don't pertain to us, but just so you know the background, this is built for teams all across the country who are facing the same problem that we're all facing, which is virtual instruction and virtual competition. It is browser-based, and Chrome is the recommended browser to use when you're using it. However, it will work on all browsers. And the QuizBowl Pro website, and I'm going to put the link in the chat just in case you have not seen it. Here's a link to the actual website itself, and this is the one that we're going to be referencing and going to quite a bit tonight. QuizBowl Pro. Also, this presentation, I will put that on the KAC website as well. There are some live links in the slides that you may be interested in checking out. All right, we're going to focus first on from the coach's perspective, but just so we have some terminology in common, for the purposes of this training, host, when I say the word host, it's going to not necessarily mean a host of I'm hosting District Governor's Cup. It's going to be the person who's controlling QuizBowl Pro. They're going to determine all the match settings, they're going to add the team rosters, create match codes, and actually run the buzzers during the match. So this can be a coach, it can be a host or an official of a Governor's Cup competition, it can even be students. And you'll see as we go through that I very rarely host the match. My kids are the ones that host it when we practice and even play in scrimmages. But just for the ease of discussion, I will use this term coach's perspective just as a general overall term that describes what the host responsibilities are. There are basically 3 important tasks if you're the coach or the host inside QuizBowl Pro: creating an account, creating the team rosters, and then creating the actual matches. So we're going to look at all 3 of those. And again, I'm going to go really fast because we're going to repeat all this live in a demonstration. So the first thing you're going to need to do is create an account. And KAC is partnered with QuizBowl Pro to offer free accounts to all KAC member schools. And those accounts are going to be valid through the middle of March, which would basically coincide with when our state Governor's Cup competition would end. So that is free with your membership. You can create as many accounts as you need for assistant coaches. You can also create what we call dummy accounts. If you're hosting a competition, for instance, you're going to need to have multiple accounts created that you can use to access the host settings and create matches. Dummy accounts are also good for allowing students to run the buzzers in practice without you having to share login information with your personal account. And you're going to see that in action tonight. We've created a couple of dummy accounts that we use for practice that the kids have access to. They know the password, they set it up, and they run the buzzers. Now, if you want to access your free account, and this is not, let me get the link in the chat. This link is not on just on their normal webpage. You can't see this link. This is the link that you want to get your free KAAC account if you've not gotten that. Also, if you want to sign up for extra accounts for your assistants, those dummy accounts that you can use for practice, that is the link you need to go to. So I would maybe bookmark that, open a tab, and you can explore that later as well. All right. Jumping back and forth between tabs here. Now, you can also purchase account, and that's going to run a full calendar year from the date of your purchase. Currently, the pricing is $15 a month or $100 per year. This is an introductory price, and it only is valid, excuse me, through the end of this calendar year. So if you want to get that, take advantage of that pricing. If you say, hey, you know, after Governor's Cup, I love this. This is great. I just want to keep going with this throughout the summer so my kids can practice. Then you can also get a paid account. And here's a tip. When I first started doing this, it took me a while to wrap my brain around this idea. Each account, you should think of it as a separate physical buzzer system that you would use in practice. So if there's ever a time that you need 2 buzzer systems to run simultaneously, you will need 2 accounts. Let's think about if you host, let's say regionals, and you have 4 matches running at once. There are 4 separate host accounts that need to run those 4 matches. So think of a host account as a buzzer system. Okay, so now we're going to create a match. And again, I apologize I'm going so fast, but I do want to get to the actual demo part of this. So we're going to start from the coach's perspective. We're going to create a match. And the first thing you need to do before creating a match is you need to create teams. All right, any good match has to have teams. And that is, I think, the easiest and best way to first create a match. So on the QuizBowl Systems website at the top, you're going to want to hit the host login button. And that's where you're going to log in after you've created your account with your password and your email address. And that's going to take you to this screen. This is the host settings screen. And this is kind of, think of this as the master control panel for all of QuizBowl Pro. When you log into your account as a host, this is what you see. And I'm just going to point out a few highlights here. Circled in red in the center at the top, Victor Cluck, who's the creator of QuizBowl Pro, he does updates all the time. And whatever latest updates are out, you're going to find them listed there, and you can click that read more button to get the full detailed version of any updates to the software. Down below that to the left, it says main actions in the host settings window, where it says matches, teams, and match settings. That's your main controls. Those are the main actions you can do in the host setting window. And we're going to start here in a second with the teams button. Below that to the left, any matches you've created are stored for you, and they're going to show you the match ID, which is extremely important. That's the code for your kids to get into the match. Whatever you name the match, the date that you created the match, the status, if it's completed, if you've created it ahead of time and it's not yet been ran. And then you can also edit the details and delete your matches as well. And that middle button is create a match, but we're not going to create the match actually using that button first. We're going to do the teams button instead. And that's located again, like I said, right here in the top left. Click on that and you can get started creating a match. So when you click on that, the create a team screen, this is what you're going to see. And I couldn't get the whole entire scrolling window into one screenshot, but here's the main features. At the top, you're going to be able to add the team name. Now, if you're hosting, for instance, let's say that you're hosting a 5-team district ahead of time in your host accounts, you're going to load in and create all 5 teams ahead of time. Whatever teams you create are stored in your host account until you delete them. So if you know you have a competition coming up, once your contest manager gets together, they're going to talk to the coaches about sending all the rosters to the host school, and whoever's going to be the host of the matches will go ahead and load in all the rosters into every account that you're going to use. Obviously below that, you can see that you can add the player names, and you have a total of 15 spots. That's hardwired into the system. If you have more than 15 kids on your team, you'll have to create more than one team to host all those different players. And this is not shown, but the Save the Team button is at the very bottom. And here's a little tip, and it took me a while. It took my players telling me they figured out that in the course of the match, if you leave those generic player 1, player 2, if you leave any of those spaces in your roster after you've saved your team, they're going to show up when you try to substitute people. So if you want to clean your screen up, a good tip is to delete any unused spaces by hitting the trash can icon next to each player name slot. You delete those, then you can add them in later if you have more kids later on that join the team, for instance. But any of those generic player 10, player 11, etc., get rid of those and they won't show up and it won't clutter your screen up when you're trying to play an actual match. All right, continued in the create a match section. Now that you've created your teams, now you're going to actually click on the create a match, which is that main middle button that we saw. And the reason you want to create the teams first is it's going to give you an error message if you try to create a match and there's no teams loaded. So this is a very long scroll. I think it's about 4 or 5 screenshots here. So I'm going to go through it kind of quickly. You can name the match at the top. It automatically loads in the date that you create the match. It says you can have any match settings, standard match settings. We'll look at those a little bit, but generally that's if you want to, if you create a special setting, for instance, you want to play in practice 8-minute halves, and you know you have other little features. You can save those match settings ahead of time and load those up. That's totally optional. You can create the match settings as well each time that you create a match. Below that, you select the 2 teams as a drop down. In that drop down, you'll see any saved teams that are saved into your QuizBowl Pro host account. The first 4 players listed will auto-populate in those first 4 spots. And if you continue to scroll down, on the next section, you'll see activate round timer. That's if you want to play an 8-minute half or a 10-minute half or a 12-minute half. However, as a note, the KAC matches, it's been determined they will be untimed this season. So all questions in all matches at all levels will be read. There will not be match time in each half. But if you want to practice that way, that's how you do that, activate round timer. Starting points, that's if you want to start the match not at 0-0. Sometimes in practice, I'll maybe take my starting team and I'll start them out 5 points ahead and say, okay, you got to catch up. So you could do that there. The next section is very important. It's the toss-up settings. And they're kind of self-explanatory as you go through. And you'll see those live in a minute when we set up an actual match. If you continue to scroll down, team questions, this is not applicable to KAC. In some forms of competitions, they have something separate from a bonus called a team question. And then the next section is very important. That's where bonuses happen. And you want to pay very close attention to all settings. There are a lot of settings in there, and we'll show you those here in just a few. And then if you keep scrolling down, you have timeout options, and these are specific to KAC. So we have an inquiry timeout, a rebuttal timeout, and then also halftime. So you can activate those if you want to use them. If you're playing a live match, you definitely want to activate those. In practice, you may want to activate those as well. Sound and display options are after that. Generally speaking, those are self-explanatory, except in the second option there, which says play ring-in sound. You want to make sure that you select host only for that. And the reason so is there's kind of an audio bug in QuizBowl Pro. I love QuizBowl Pro. It's 99.9% awesome all the time. The only issue, and I've talked to the creator and they still are trying to figure and work it out, is that the sound of the buzz-in sometimes can be a little problematic. And you'll see that tonight as we play. Finally, at the very bottom, it says save match settings. You can save your custom settings here. If you like this setup, if this is a common setup you use, you can save it if you want to. Again, that's totally optional. So then once you've gone through all that, your match is ready. And it's gonna generate back in that host settings screen a match ID. So we've just created a match. The new match ID is gonna show up in your list. And this is the code that you're gonna share with your players in order to play. Now, if for some reason you've created a match and you need to edit it, then the little pencil icon on the right will allow you to edit the match details. Let's say you messed up and said, oh, I forgot to turn on bonus questions. You can go in, edit the match, change that setting, and it'll update all the settings for you. And once you're done with the match, you can leave them all in there. You can delete them with the trash can icon. All right, so that was from the coach's perspective. And I'm gonna stop for just a second. Does anyone have any questions now? I'm getting ready to move into the student perspective. Right after this section, we're gonna get into some real quick recall. If anyone has any questions, you can unmute. You can type in the chat. I've got 2 computers up, so I'm watching both. As I'm sure many of you have, and you may not use Google Meets in your district. You may be familiar with Zoom. Watching the chat has become It's almost like a sixth sense at this point. All right, so from the student perspective, here's what they're going to see. All right, we've got our match. Now you need your brilliant kids that are actually going to play quick recall. And they're going to go to the QuizBowl Pro website that I linked earlier, and they're going to see this screen. It says Enter Match ID. Now, something that's very important, and it's on my second bullet point here. They're going to enter the ID if they are one of the quote-unquote starting 4 players. So when you create your team, you're going to want to put, if you have a common starting players, you're going to want to put those in the first 4 slots. And the reason is that when the match is launched and they get the code, only the 4 players who are listed first are going to enter the match at the beginning. Everyone else on your team is just going to watch on your video conference software. Now, if you want to halfway through the first half, if you want to sub a player in, you call a timeout. The player you're going to sub out would leave the match, and the person that's subbing in now takes that match code. They go to this page again, they enter the match ID, and now they're going to be able to see their name once they've been loaded in as a substitute. That's an important little quirk you just need to pay attention to. Only the first 4 people, when we first started playing, kids would get on and say, I can't see my name anywhere. That's because they weren't listed in one of those first 4 slots to be a quote-unquote starter or to be actually in the match. So only the kids in the match currently have to log in with the ID. Okay, that's enough talk. What I want to do now is I'm going to go through all of that again, but I'm going to, instead of me talking about it, we're going to show you. And Mahmood, one of my 8th graders, he's my captain for Quick Recall too. He is going to take over and he's going to walk through the hosting settings, and I'm going to kind of talk him through that. So I'm going to stop presenting for just a second. And Mahmood is going to present now, and he's going to start off from the home screen. Mahmood, while you're doing that, just so you can introduce yourself some, what's your favorite subject in school, Mahmood?
My favorite subject is math.
Yes, and I'm partial. I'm a math teacher. We are very we take pride in math at Bondurant. So Mahmood is a very gifted math student, as all of our students that are in the meet tonight are all gifted math students as well. Okay, so we're in the host login screen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what you're seeing. So this email that Mahmood has kind of loaded up here and saved is one of those dummy accounts that we created. Now I created one with my actual normal, robbie.roberts@franklin.ky schools address, and I created my password. However, to create an account on that free link, the second link that I posted in the chat, all you need is something that is name@website.com. It does not have to be a valid email address. And then you can create whatever password you want. Now, of course, if you don't put in a valid email address, you won't be able to retrieve the password if you miss it or if you lose it, but it really doesn't matter because you can just create another account, worst case scenario. So what I did was I created this BMS practice1@practice.com. And then I created a very, very simple password that I share with the kids. And then we actually have a second account as well. And whoever's going to run the buzzers during our practices, they know these logins already. They know the passwords. They just are ready to go already. So Mahmood's got one of those loaded in. He's going to go ahead and sign in. So you're seeing this now from what the host of the QuizBowl Pro is going to see. And we've got, this was our training from last week. So here's that host setting screen. We've got our matches, our teams, and our match setting buttons. We could create a match from here if we wanted to. Remember though, we need teams in order to, now we do, if he clicks on teams, you'll see that we do have some teams that I created from last week, but Mahmood, just go ahead and delete those teams. Because I want to see the whole process. We're going to create teams. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go to create a team. So we're going to call this Bondurant A, for instance. And again, I'm just, hey, Varsha, one of my other guys got here. Perfect. What you're seeing is if you're creating, this is the first step. You want to create a team before you create a match. You want to have multiple teams so that it'll allow you to actually create the match. All right, so let's do this. I've got, perfect, I've got 4 Bondurant. So actually, you know what? Let's just call this team Bondurant. That's okay, Varshith, no problem. Let's call this team Bondurant, and let's put in Varshith, Malishwar, Vidya, and Riddhi. So Mahmood's going to type those in and see what we got. 1, 2, 3. All right, and then let's just put a fake player name in just so we can show substitutions. Okay, now what Mahmood's going to do now is, let's say we only have 5 people on our team. He's going to delete all the other player names. All those blank spots, he's going to delete those so they don't show up when I try to substitute. All right, and then he's going to save the team. Now Bondurant is saved. Okay, so now let's create another team, and let's call this let's call this Trainees. Trainee. And I'm going to put your all's names in. Now, this is not going to be a competitive match. You don't need to, I know that it's tough to play quick recall. So let's just put in Jana, Janna. Let's put in Janice, Janice. We'll put in Markela. And then let's just put in, well, actually, let's try to put me in. So put in, I'll put in my first name. The kids don't call me by my first name, but we can put in Robbie. And then we'll put in, and we can just leave the rest blank. Okay, so just remember, Mahmood, when we do a substitution, we'll do it with the Bondurant team. And now, just like before, now just highlighting the name and deleting it is not enough. It'll still show up. You have to use the trash can icon to delete all the extra players. All right, so now we've got 2 teams. We've got Bondurant versus the Trainees. Now we're going to go to actually create a match. So he clicked on match. You can see we have our old one there. Let's delete that one, Mahmood, just so we don't get confused and see the old one. And now he's going to create a match. Okay, so let's call this KAAC Training 1223. Now the standard match settings, we're not gonna go in. If you just click on that though, there's different settings that are already set up for different levels of KAC, but you can also see how many other people are using this system. So there's different match settings set up for all kinds of competitions, but we're gonna just make ours from scratch. He's gonna select the 2 teams. So there's Bondurant and there's Trainees. And I wanna point out that the 4 people who popped up were the first 4 people that were listed. And once we get into a match and see what the substitution button looks like, you'll see that only the person who's not in the match can be subbed in. But if you were that 5th person who was not in the match yet, you don't enter the match code until you're actually substituted into the match by your coach. All right, we will not activate the round timer. We'll start out with 0 points. Let's look at the toss-up settings really quickly. 1 point for toss-ups. Early correct answer bonus, no. Wrong answer penalty, no. Early incorrect answer, no. 5 seconds. For middle school, it's 5 seconds for toss-ups. Computation time is something we don't have. That would be something, though, if any of you are math counts coaches, they do have that in math counts. Reset the ring-in timer after incorrect answers, yes. Once per team, and toss-up answer timer, no. Now, we're not going to activate team questions. That doesn't pertain to us, but we definitely want to pay attention to the bonuses. So in KAC, we only have 1 bonus question. There's only 1 part to the question. 1 point. Bounce back, yes. Enable immediate bounce back, yes. Bonus questions followed toss-ups only if they're answered correctly. The toss-up winner gets control of the bonus. 10 seconds is our timer. Deliberation timer and computation timer do not pertain to us, so we'll say no to both of those. We got our timeouts activated if we want to call it timeout. And now the sound and display options. I want to explain is the only one you ever really need to particularly care about is that second one, play ring in sound. If you click on that drop down, you get a few options. This basically says, where does the buzzer sound come from? And you're going to see, most likely when we play, the buzzer sound is going to start getting distorted. It's going to start to fade out. And eventually, over time, it will disappear completely. It's a very, very easy fix. The only thing that needs to happen is the host, who's ever running the buzzers, just refreshes their screen. You don't lose any of your data. Everything's fine. But if you set it to host only, that means that the sound of the buzzers is coming from only the computer of the host, and it comes through in the video conference. So you can still hear the buzzers. It just seems like this is the best setting to avoid really bad audio glitches. All right. Everything else is relatively self-explanatory. You just want to basically put yes to everything in this section. And you just want to change that to play ring in sound from the host only. And then if you like these settings, you can save them, give them a specific name, but it's fine. We create them every time. Now we're ready to create the match. So if we were practicing, I would be telling Mahmoud, we would see who showed up. He'd be making the teams. I'd tell him who to put on each team. And now he's created the match. And what he's going to do 90% of the time, the easiest way to do it is we're going to put that match ID and the website link into the chat. So he's going to paste that match ID into the chat. And if you're unfamiliar with Google Meet, the chat is, there's a little, it looks like a little word balloon. If you click on that, it'll pull the chat up. So there's the code to get into the match. And Mahmoud, could you also put the QuizBowl Pro link to the website? He's going to put that in as well. And I want everyone who's in the, to go ahead and try to go to the website and log into this match. Now, I'm going to moderate and read some questions, so I won't actually log in myself. But, you know, actually, I guess I can. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and try to log in as well, just so that you can see that I'm in the match as well. Now, when you go to join as a player, you want to make sure that you are not you're not choosing the host login. You're clicking on join a match.
You want me to share my screen?
Yeah, that'd be great, actually, Malishwar. If you can show everyone what you're seeing on your end. So this is the student perspective. So Malishwar is one of my 6th grade players, and he's going to present his screen. So Malishwar is going to click on join a match. He's got the match code. He's going to enter it. Now Malishwar knows he's on Bondurant. And there we go. So now, Malishwar, keep your screen up for a second. So if you haven't seen this screen before, this is the main player screen. And once we go live, this is where the buzz-in button is going to be. If you see the player names listed and they are white, the box with their name is white, that means they're logged in and ready to go. And if you see it as gray, that means the person has not logged in yet. So as I can see right now on Bondurant, that Varshith, Malishwar, Vidya, and Riddhi are all in the match. And then for the trainees team, everyone except Janice is in so far. So I want to give everyone a chance to log in. And we're going to run through what we would call a buzzer check. Now, you just saw Malishwar refresh his screen. And there's going to be some slides after we play a little bit that are common problems, some troubleshooting stuff. But the #1 mantra that your players, your teammates, your team members should live by is if there's a problem, refresh your screen. Refresh your screen solves 99% of the problems with QuizBowl Pro. Now that means you may miss out on a question here or there, but it's better than stopping the match for 3 minutes to try to figure out why someone can't get into the match. All right, so let's do this. So let's switch back to Mahmoud. If you can start presenting again. So we're going to go back to what the host is seeing. Okay, so we just saw Malishwar's screen. That's what the player sees. And now we're going to see what the host, Mahmoud, who's going to run the buzzers tonight, what he sees. Okay, so what you're going to notice is he's got a lot more options going on. At the bottom, he's got play question. That makes every question live. That's the important button you have to have in order for people to be able to ring in. If Mahmoud hits play question, you're going to notice on your screen now that you should have a ring in buzzer button. And I just rang in. That's telling me that that only comes live if you are the first person that's in that buzzes in, but you have to, that play question has to be activated. Okay, so malishwar. Now let's undo that. Let's end the question for a second and look at some more of these features. So ring in test is what we would call, buzzer check at the beginning of the match. Timeout is self-explanatory. If a coach calls a timeout, we can do that. Edit the scores. Let's say that there was an issue at halftime and there was an inquiry and we need to change the scores. You can do that in the edit scores button. Now, it's a little funky the way we do it. We'll do it live in the match, but you actually, if you want to take away a point, you have to type in -1. If you need to add 2 points, it would be 2. So you actually have to tell it what you want it to do. Sub players is where we can substitute people in. And then in match, that makes that match code finished. You won't be able to access any of the features once you end the match. Okay. Now let's go into so he's going to click on ring in test. And this is where we'll do a buzzer check. And the person who runs the buzzers, we found it's best that they're also the spotter. Now, we've also played where one person is running the buzzers and another kid's on the Google Meet and they're being the spotter. The only problem with that is if the spotter's internet connection goes out or it gets glitchy or laggy, then the entire match is going to be affected. The spotting will be off. So that's why we like to make the buzzer operator and the spotter the same person. And Mahmoud's going to show you that. Let's just do a buzzer check starting with Varshit.
Andre Varshev. Andre Malishwar. Andre Video. Andre Riddy.
And now let's go ahead and do a buzzer check starting with Jana for the trainees. So Jana, on your screen, you should see the ring in button.
I'm not seeing anything.
Are you? And you're on the quiz. You're on the QuizBowl Pro. Can you share your screen real quick? If you go, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Google Meets, but here we go. Mahmoud's going to stop for a second, and I'm gonna see your screen. If you can, on the bottom right, if you hit present now and just hit present your entire screen.
Let's see. There we go.
And the reason I like to see it from the players and from the host perspective is because of exactly like this. If there's an issue where, and Janet, if you hit present and it pulls up a little window with your screen in it, you actually have to click the screen picture and then hit present. It's a real, I don't like how Google does that, but here we go. All right, now if you want to open your tab for QuizBowl. Okay, so you see that gray ring, and if you want to just hide that little button at the bottom, there's your ring in button right there.
Yay!
Yeah, there you go, perfect. All right, and then you can just leave it up for a second. Janice, if you want to go ahead and buzz in. There's Janice, and then Markayla, once it's cleared out, then you can go.
Janice. Trainee Markayla. Trainee Robbie.
Now, Mahmoud does not usually call me Robbie, so that sounds weird coming out of his
Yeah,
mouth. It does. Did it feel weird, Mahmoud, to say that?
Yeah.
All right, that's the one time you can do it, okay? All right, so that's what it looks like. And Jana, you can stop presenting your screen now if you want. It's in that same spot at the bottom. Now, when we play matches, generally what we are going to watch is the host screen, okay? Yeah, just click that. You can click stop presenting. And then Mahmoud, you can take it back over. As he's doing that, does anyone have any questions so far? And again, I know some of you said you've messed around with it just a little bit. Some of you said this is the first time you've seen it. So at any point when we're doing this, if you have any questions. Now, the reason I want to play some actual quick recall is because I want you, and yeah, Barsha said, that's something that as we talk about some common issues, we'll go through and talk about some things like that. There's little, you know, host-specific things that happen sometimes and they don't happen other times as well. And then Jana, if you don't mind to mute your mic. This is something else we're going to talk about. When we play, we normally play with our mics muted, and we mute and unmute for answering toss-ups. And the reason we do that is pretty simple. With 8 kids, a moderator, and the spotter having their mics on all at once, it gets pretty noisy. And there's not an official, I'm going to warn you, there's not an 100% official rule yet from KAC if they're going to require mics on the whole match or not. My suggestion would be play both ways. Play in practice with everyone just keeping their mics on the whole time, and just tell everyone they've got to be super quiet. The problem is, especially when kids have the microphone on their headphones or something like that, when you can just barely move it and it's going to make noise. It's almost impossible for them to be quiet during that. Or, you know, little sister is in the background and she's upset. Maybe she's crying. The dog is barking. There's just always something that's going on, and it just makes the match a lot more difficult. So we feel it's best to just mute and unmute. So as we play tonight, you'll see my players are going to turn their mics on and off. They're going to mute and unmute. Okay. Now, if you're not familiar yet, I'm just going to give you just very fast little instructions before we do a little demo, and then we will we'll play some quick recall. The biggest rule change that you need to know about is there will be bounce back bonuses this year. However, bonuses themselves are just going to be completely different. Instead of huddled together in your desks in that classroom where you're playing quick recall, the students on a bonus are going to confer over the open mic. They have 10 seconds to talk it out. At the end of that 10 seconds, the moderator, if they have not gotten an answer, I'm going to prompt for an answer. And when they give an answer, they need to say in some way, shape, or form, final answer blank. Or some teams say the answer first and say final answer. And you'll see why when there's multiple kids talking on the mic at once, it can be confusing when an actual answer is being given or not. And then finally, let's say that Bonder gets a bonus, they miss it. It will bounce back to the other team. And now the other team, instead of answering immediately, like we do in normal in-person quick recall, instead, they're going to have 10 seconds to also confer over the open mic. And this is number one, far and away, the biggest thing we've had to get used to. My team, we play in 2 different leagues. We've had 6th grade showcase. We've had 5 to 8 scrimmages. So we've probably played a grand total of 20 to 25 matches. So they're pretty fluent with it now. But however, at the beginning, this was far and away the hardest thing to get used to. So let's play some quick recall. Let's do, we'll play about, I don't know, 15 to 20 questions. I'll stop before 7:30. We'll discuss if there's any other questions anyone has. Now let's go ahead and who would like to be the captain for the trainees team? And I'm not actually going to be playing. I'm going to be moderating. So who would like to be captain? And I know this is the time when you're in a presentation, like, if we were in person, this would be the time when everyone like doesn't make eye contact with me. Oh, thank you so much, Markayla. All right. So, and you'll see with the Bonner kids how it works and being captain, how that works. Okay. But let's just go ahead and play. The best way to do this is to play. So let me pull up. I had some questions ready to go. And then I've lost them. They went away. Let's see. Sorry, give me 1 second. I had them pulled up and they disappeared. Here they are. Okay, so captain for Bondrent, let's see, Varshith. Actually, you know what, Malishwar, will you be captain, please?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Let's play some quick recall. Question, and this is, I'm starting in a spot where the kids they've not heard these questions, but I'm gonna start at a random number here. All right, question 10, toss up. An electrical circuit's current is inversely proportional to its resistance. The current is 70 amps when the resistance is 30 ohms. Find the current in amps when the resistance is 70 ohms.
Bonder Varsheth.
30.
30 is correct. 11, bonus. This uprising occurred in 1794 in western Pennsylvania. Settlers in that area were rebelling against an excise tax on a product that they produced from their excess grain. By what name do we call this rebellion against a tax on distilled spirits?
Whiskey Rebellion.
Okay, I'll just designate you ready.
No, I'm
I
captain. Captain.
Oh yeah, sorry, you're captain.
I designate ready.
Whiskey Rebellion.
That is correct. I'm going to pause for 1 second. So that was my mistake. I originally said Varshith, and then Malishwar is our sixth grade captain normally. But you can hear that they're conferring over the open mic, and they handled that. And he did the confer. When you designate someone, that's going to replace that final answer prompt that the captain needs to say. All right. Question 12 is a toss-up. This character is named for the biblical ruler from 1 Kings who covets Naboth's vineyard. This character, however, is a monomaniacal, one-legged man who seeks revenge on a gigantic mammal. Who is the Pequod's captain in Moby Dick?
Time.
Okay, the correct answer is Captain Ahab. Now, you may have noticed you didn't hear any buzzer sound just now. This is the audio issue I was talking about. So Mahmoud's going to refresh his screen. And you saw that he lost the connection for just a second. But when you refresh your screen, everything stays. All the data is kept. All right, question 13, toss-up. These animals' colorful features are almost comical, but they use counter shading to fool predators. Since they spend a lot of time in water, their dark...
Chef.
Cryptic coloration.
Incorrect. Since they spend a lot of time in water, their dark features hide them from predators swimming above. What birds have white bellies that help hide them from predators swimming below?
Time.
The correct answer is penguins. Now, I want to point out, after every incorrect, once the question's over, Mahmoud or whoever's running your buzzers, they have to hit the play question button every time to activate everyone having a ring-in button on their screen. All right, question 14 is a toss-up. A double one of these musical notations resembles the letter X. The more common version looks like a hashtag. Which accidental raises a note's pitch by one semitone?
Bonjour Malishwar.
Key signature.
Incorrect.
Time.
The correct answer is a sharp. Now, also, I want to point out that when we did that question, Malishwar, will you buzz in again? Now, you have options for, if you're the host, the buzzer operator, right, wrong, or undo. Undo is when it's an obvious, accidental buzz. You just hit undo, it's going to take it away. If you hit wrong, however, buzz in again, Malishwar. If you hit wrong, it locks out the Bondurant team, and then it also resets the ring-in timer. Once the question's read, then Mahmoud can hit the start ring-in timer to get the 5 seconds for the toss-up for the other team. And then if you hit in question, you're ready for the next. All right, so we will go to question 15, toss-up. A cone and a cylinder each have a height of 5 millimeters and a base whose radius is 2 millimeters. State the ratio of the cylinder's volume to the cone's volume.
Bonjour Malishwar.
1/3.
Incorrect.
Time.
The correct answer is 3-1. Question 16, toss-up. This Protestant sect dominated Philadelphia society at the time of the American Revolution. Members believe each person possesses an inner light and refuse to take oaths or condone violence. Name this religion founded by George Fox, of which William Penn was a prominent member.
Bonjour Chef.
Quakers.
That is correct. Question 17, bonus. This hoofed herbivorous mammal is of the family Equidae, originally hunted for food. This large mammal was likely first domesticated in the steppes of Central Asia. Identify this partner and a friend to mankind, which serves as a plow animal as well as providing transportation.
It's horse.
Yeah.
Horse. Okay. Final answer, horse.
That is correct. I want to pause there for a second. So one thing I coach my team to do, we've played, like I said, a lot of matches. Some teams, their strategy for bonuses is everyone starts to talk all at once and it gets really crazy. So I've coached my team as the captain is going to do a quick poll. Does anyone know? And what I've said is, if you don't know, you don't need to spend 5 seconds telling everyone how much you don't know the answer. All that does is makes the communication harder, it wastes time. And I tell my kids instead, if you don't know the answer, stay silent. And then after a few seconds of awkward silence, the kids realize, okay, no one on my team knows it. Now, if you do know it, or if it's a math problem and you're trying to, you can say, I've got it, hold on, give me a second. And then that way the captain knows, because not being able to see each other, not being in the same room is tough. And also one thing we didn't realize until we started playing virtual quick recall is in a normal quick recall in-person match, during bonus question, lots of times you're already conferring while the question's being read. So you may have 10 seconds, but you may actually confer for 15 seconds while the question's being read and you have your answer ready to go. So that 10 seconds of time is actually a little bit shorter than in a normal quick recall match, or at least it feels that way to the kids. So, that's why at the end, and on this next one, Bondurant, if you get a toss-up right, I want you to let the time run out and let me prompt on the bonus, okay? And I'll try to show that as well. All right, question 18, toss-up. I'm sorry, I'm going to skip that one because I want to get to one where, let's see. Question 20, toss up. A Lyft driver charges a flat $2 fee plus 50 cents per mile. Sandra has no more than $10 to spend. How many miles can Sandra ride without exceeding her budget?
Bonjour, our chef.
16 miles.
That is correct. And Mahmoud, will you refresh your screen again so that we get the buzzing sound? Again, if the sound starts to degrade or goes out, if the host refreshes, that's going to fix the problem every time. And then let's see, 21 is a bonus. Let this one go to the full time. This constitutional amendment does not prevent the government from restricting. Yes, I'm sorry. There we go. This constitutional amendment does not prevent the government from restricting the use of loudspeakers in residential areas at night, nor does it stop the police from limiting demonstrations that block traffic. Give the amendment that stops the government from passing laws to prevent the free exercise of religion.
Is the First Amendment.
Yeah. But just wait.
Yeah.
Time.
Bondurant, do you have an answer?
Yes. Final answer is the First Amendment.
That is correct. Now, I think I caught Malishwar a little off guard there. So you see that at the end, the moderator has been, we're instructing moderators, give a prompt, okay? It could be a muting, unmuting issue. And we're also officially saying 3 to 4 seconds is the acceptable time for a quote unquote hesitation, okay? All right, hey guys, listen, I think we're gonna stop there. We got about 4 minutes left. I wanna hit a few more slides on our presentation. And also I want to see if there's any questions. So at this point, if you're a player on the QuizBowl Pro site, if you go to player logout in the top right, you're out of the match, and it takes you back to that matches screen when you do that. Oh, I'm sorry, it does for me because I'm a host as well. So everyone can log out, and once you're logged out, your name turns gray. That means you're out of the match. Now, if we wanted to substitute, let's really quickly go to sub players for a second. And now if you see on Bondurant, if you click on any of those 4 names, there's only one sub that we have, and that's what we call them person. At that point, you would sub in person, Vidya would be out of the match, and now whoever that person is would enter the match code on that same home screen the kids see, and then they would be allowed to be in the match as well. And then you can see, I think Mahmoud or someone else they logged in as that person. All right. So if you can stop presenting, Mahmoud, I'm going to present again. And back to my tab. And let me go back to present here. we'll wrap this thing up. For some reason, it's not letting me. Let me go back to try to present. Yeah, it gave me an error. Let me try to present again. Sorry about that. Here we go. Okay, so some rules changes and some common issues, and we've seen some of these just now in our little live demonstration. But the complete set of all rule changes is they've redone the quick recall manual completely from scratch. It also, not only does it have all the new rule changes, it also has a really helpful list of do's and don'ts from the actual creator of QuizBowl Pro, along with some tutorial videos. Now, I will tell you that these videos were created maybe a month or so ago, and there's been some updates that have happened that make some of the information obsolete. But if you want to see this all again, these are going to be on the KAC website in this guide. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this link as well in the chat. This PDF, you definitely want to take a look at this. So I just put that in the chat. So bookmark that. This is the master document. What I'm doing is a pretty quick run through just to kind of break the ice and familiarize you with this. This is the every detail link that you want right there, as well as those helpful do's and don'ts from the creator of the actual website. So here's some highlights from that. Matches are untimed this year. In all levels, all questions will be read in all matches. Bonuses we talked about. You're going to confer over the open mic. Students need to say final answer. That just makes it a lot clearer when we don't have any visual cues and everyone's talking over the mic at once. At the end of the 10 seconds, the moderator is going to prompt the captain for their final answer. And at this point, if they don't give an answer, it'll bounce back. On bounce backs, the other team also has 10 seconds and they confer over the open mic as well. At the end of those 10 seconds, the moderator will again prompt, if no answer has been given, for a final answer. Hesitations, they've always been judgment calls. They're still judgment calls. The official stated rule is after someone's been designated by the spotter, 3 to 4 seconds. And that's leeway that we obviously would not have in a normal quick recall match. But because it's virtual, we're giving that little grace period of 3 to 4 seconds. There still are going to be timeouts. There's still going to be half times. Really depending on the video conferencing platform you use, is going to that's going to really greatly affect what those timeouts and half times will look like. In Zoom, breakout rooms work great. In Google Meet, they are not so great. So it really depends on the host, and hosting the host school is going to have the largest say at the coaches meeting when picking the video conference platform. And it makes sense. If I was hosting, our district uses Google, I'm most comfortable with Google. If the smoothness of the whole competition rides on me, I'm going to go with what I'm comfortable with. And everyone just has to be flexible and adapt to that. But again, that's a decision you make at your coaches meeting. Refresh your screen. If your kids have a problem, refresh your screen. Most of the technical difficulties you're going to experience in a match are not from QuizBowl Pro. They're going to be from the video conference. They're going to be laggy, especially when we talk here in a second about cameras on and off. Most of the problems come from the video conference, not from QuizBowl Pro. But if there is a problem, refresh your screen. You won't lose your information, but that's the best way. That solves 95% of the problems. But if it's a problem that can't be solved easily, students need to alert their coach or the officials by using the chat feature of whatever video conference platform they're using. At that point, there's going to be an official timeout, and they'll have 2 minutes to fix the problem. If they can't fix the problem within 2 minutes, then they'll have to sub someone else in. Also, a new KAC rule is if you only have 4 players and you lose one because of technical difficulties in the middle of the match, you will be allowed to play with less than 4 players. If it's technical difficulty related, and if they started the match and you lose it through somewhere in the middle of the match, you can play with 3 players. You guys saw and heard that the buzzer sound can be a little glitchy. And that's why it's important to have a good spotter who, as soon as, and to make them the host, as soon as they see that light up on their screen, they're going to say Bondurant Varshith. And that's going to be the cue for the moderator to stop reading. If they can't hear the buzzer, if it goes out, that's going to be an important cue. And then the host just needs to refresh their screen. The match data will not be lost. Now, the last two kind of important points I want to talk about are muting and unmuting versus leaving your mics on. And we talked about that. We play with our muted. When it's time for them to answer, they unmute. If you have headsets, that's extremely helpful. You can hit the mute and unmute button if you have a microphone built into your headset. Most iPhones now have earbuds that you can just mute and unmute. Also learning the keyboard shortcuts. I know in Google Meet, it's Control-D to mute and unmute. I'm not 100%, I think it's spacebar maybe in Zoom, but I'm not 100% sure about that. You probably want to practice both ways though, because KAC, potentially, I know there's been discussions that some people are worried that with mics off, there can be someone in the background who's feeding answers to the student. I find that highly unlikely, but it could happen. So just practice both ways. Practice with the mics on the whole time, and then practice muting and unmuting. That way you're ready for any situation that might arise. Okay, and then cameras on versus cameras off. When we play in scrimmages or practices in our league matches, we play with our cameras off. And that's just for one simple reason. It helps with bandwidth and makes the video conference smoother. If the video conference goes down, the whole match goes down. If you can't hear the moderator, if the kid's computer's lagging and they can't hear the questions, they can't play. All right. However, KAC officially for actual competition, some form of video monitoring will need to occur. What I'm hoping is by the time that we get to districts or regionals at least, we might be in a situation in some districts where kids can gather in small groups, maybe at their home school. And if that's the situation, you can turn one camera on the whole team. It's going to make the bandwidth much less of an issue. But just keep in mind that for cheating purposes, KAC is going to mandate that there is some form of video on each player during the match. So you're going to want to, again, try to turn your cameras on during practices to work out how the quality is. And in that manual, that document I linked a little earlier, there's some good technical information as well about how to help minimize any kind of technical issues in the video conference. Okay, and then here are my final thoughts. I'm a KAC board member. I know the amount of time and energy people have had all summer, hours upon hours of meetings. How do we make quick recall online a reality? And I think people have done a really good job. And Victor has created this system, and it's amazing and it's great. But we all have to remember, this is not real in-person quick recall. It's a virtual quick recall. It will be different. And that's one thing about COVID. You know, we all have to be willing to give each other some grace if you're going to get by. And the attitude, I want to stress this so much, the attitude that you take as a coach or as a, an assistant or as just a parent volunteer, whatever attitude you take, that's going to be adopted by your students. And everyone's competitive. But this is the year where we maybe want to tamp down that competitiveness a little bit and work through our rough spots together. Because in the end, it's about providing a positive experience for all these awesome kids. And I will tell you that every match we've played so far this year, it's been nothing but everyone being so accommodating, showing a lot of patience, and it's been amazing. And I think your experience is going to be exactly the same. Whether it's in person or online, these kids still get excited about it. They still compete hard, right? Our team practices hard, we compete very hard. The best thing you can do to show that you support them is provide them with a high quality experience. And the only way to do that is by practicing as much as you can with the system and scrimmaging, okay? That is the absolute best way to give them the best quality experience. And I think just you being here and spending time a few days before Christmas on a Wednesday night shows that you definitely are doing just that, and you care about the kids, and I truly appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to stop recording. Well, actually, I'll see. Are there any questions first before we go? Anything that you saw tonight? And I know I went through a lot of it very fast. This is really just meant to be kind of an icebreaker, introductory. Here's what it looks like. Here's what you're going to deal with. So you want to have any questions before we finish up tonight? You can type in the chat. You can unmute, whatever you're comfortable with. Well, if there's not any questions, again, maybe some of you joined late, so I'm going to retype my email address in the chat. So you can send me an email at that address if you have questions that you would rather just ask in an email. That's great. And otherwise, I want to thank Mahmood and Varshit and Riddhi and Malishwar and Vidya for being our Bondert team tonight. And I want to thank you all for caring about Quick Recall and your kids. I know that over the last year they've missed out on a lot, and they've had to endure not a normal experience. So just a little bit of what we can give them that's normal, I think, is amazing. I think it makes a big difference to these kids. All right, well, if there's nothing else, thank you all so much. And again, send me an email if you have any questions. And if not, have a Merry Christmas, enjoy your holidays, have a great New Year, and good luck to your team this year. Yeah, my students are awesome. I love them. They are so good. They're great. Thank you all. Have a great night. See you guys. Thank you so much. You did an awesome job. All right. I will see you all. I'll be reaching out. Let me stop the recording since this isn't on here.